A man came home to find 3 pairs of unfamiliar men's shoes at his doorstep. He assumed there were guests inside, but as soon as he walked in, his mistress, Lisa, rushed out of the bedroom in a panic, urging him to run away. Just then, 3 burly men came up behind Jack. Jack looked at Lisa in confusion, but before she could say anything, the leader, Arthur, punched him to the ground. Jack got up and identified himself as a law professor at a university, hoping to intimidate Arthur, but was promptly knocked down again. Lisa was terrified, repeatedly calling Jack's name. Jack got up again and tried to use his legal knowledge to scare off Arthur, warning that they had illegally entered a home and committed violence, which he said was an ignorant and foolish crime. He claimed that with just one phone call, he could have them all put in prison for 5 years. Just then, an older man stepped out from the bedroom, mocking Jack for announcing his profession as if he were afraid no one would know he was a law professor. He pointed out how talkative Jack was, and asked, since Jack knew the law so well, what was the penalty for a married man getting another woman pregnant? Jack was stunned. How did this old man know about his private affairs? When he learned the man was his mistress's father, he quickly changed his tone, bowed respectfully, and called him father-in-law. Lisa's father gave Jack 2 days to have his wife stamp the divorce papers to make things right for his pregnant daughter. He instructed Jack to return with the signed divorce papers in 2 days. He added that he did not regard anyone who broke a promise as a person, and hoped Jack understood. Jack promptly assured him that he would keep his word. Though Jack had been beaten, he was secretly thrilled he had passed the test with Lisa's father. Now only his wife stood in his way. Once she stamped the divorce papers, he would be on track to take over her father's conglomerate. Jack took Lisa back to the home he had long neglected, planning to secretly take his wife's personal stamp. He rummaged through drawers and closets but couldn't find it. Meanwhile, Lisa suggested having sex on his wife's bed for excitement. Jack hesitated, thinking it was wrong to betray his wife in her own bed. Lisa asked him if he still liked her. Hungry to become part of a wealthy family, Jack eventually gave in. What he didn't know was that at that very moment, his wife and daughter had already arrived at the front door. The man brought his mistress home to have sex in his wife's bed, unaware that his wife and daughter had already returned. When Mary saw her husband, who had been away from home for a long time, suddenly appear in the house, she grew suspicious. She quickly went to the bedroom and, sure enough, found a woman putting on her clothes while sitting on her bed. Though furious, she held back her anger for the sake of her daughter, not wanting to upset her. Instead, she took out her frustration on the bedding. When her husband was about to leave, Mary said she would see him out and told her daughter to go back to her room first. Once alone, she angrily warned him that no matter how many women he had outside, she could pretend not to know, but she would never let their daughter witness his filthy behavior. Her husband, however, seemed unconcerned. He said he had sent her divorce papers 6 months ago and that he was now in a free relationship. He smugly told her that if she was afraid of their daughter seeing anything, she should just stamp the divorce papers. Furious, Mary challenged him she would never stamp them. Enraged, her husband wanted to slap Mary but couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, he warned her that if she didn't stamp the papers by the next day, she would regret it for the rest of her life, and whatever happened, he would not be responsible for the consequences. Their daughter, who had seen more than Mary realized, didn't sympathize with her mother. Instead, she blamed her for the divorce, saying that her mother's focus on work had torn the family apart. Watching her daughter walk away, Mary felt both heartbroken and helpless. After seeing her daughter off, Mary went to the office, where she suddenly received a bouquet of red flowers from her husband. It was her birthday, but he hadn't come to wish her well. Inside the envelope was a sonogram of his mistress's baby. Mary couldn't believe that after 10 years of marriage, her husband had brought her such a gift on her birthday. If having such a husband was Mary's greatest sorrow, then her mother, who had the mental capacity of a 3-year-old and lived in the countryside, was her greatest shame. Embarrassed by her mother's condition, Mary had never called her mother, always calling her sister instead. She never wanted anyone to know she had a mentally disabled mother, but although her mother was intellectually disabled, she always remembered Mary's birthday. She prepared Mary's favorite dishes early on and eagerly waited for her daughter to come home. Her younger brother, however, told her she was delusional. It had been 3 years, and Mary had never once kept her promise to come back. He told her to stop dreaming. When she learned that Mary wouldn't be coming home, Mia begged her brother to take her to the city so she could bring her daughter a meal. Armed with the address Mary had given her, she went to the city, but she didn't know that her daughter had given her a fake address. Her brother dropped her off at the gate of a large mansion and drove away. Just as Mia was about to enter and look for Mary, 3 fierce dogs came charging out of the mansion. The mentally disabled mother went to the city for the first time to celebrate her daughter's birthday. What she didn't know was that her daughter, ashamed of her low intelligence, had given her a fake address. Mia followed the address and arrived at a mansion. Just as she was about to enter, a man walked out with 4 dogs, startling her. Charlie took one look at the country woman standing before him and assumed she was the new maid. He told the housekeeper to let her in. The moment Mia stepped into that mansion, both her life and her daughter's began to change. Once inside, Mia was awed by the luxurious decor. She thought her daughter had become rich and assumed the housekeeper was a tenant renting a room from her daughter. The housekeeper tried to explain, but Mia cut her off and told her to blow up some balloons. She said a birthday party needed balloons for the right atmosphere. The housekeeper thought it was the homeowner's birthday and didn't question it. Before long, she had blown up so many balloons that they filled an entire room. When Charlie returned from his walk, he was confused by all the balloons. The housekeeper explained that the new maid had blown them up to prepare for his birthday party. Charlie smirked, then turned cold and scolded the housekeeper. After more than 20 years by his side, he still couldn't remember his birthday. Just then, a delicious smell drifted from the dining table. Curious, Charlie walked over and found a full spread of home-cooked food waiting for him. The dishes were simple, but Charlie found them delicious. Another aroma caught his attention. It was his favorite sea snail seaweed soup. He reached for a spoon to try it, but Mia stopped him. She had made the soup for her daughter's birthday, and no one was going to taste it before her daughter did. Charlie didn't understand. Wasn't he the one paying for the food? Why couldn't he eat it? Mia insisted the soup was for her daughter Mary. Charlie had no idea who Mary was and thought she must be an awful person for keeping him from having his soup. He just wanted a taste. She wouldn't let him. They argued until the soup spilled all over the floor. Mia was furious. Her daughter's favorite soup was gone and bit Charlie hard on the leg. Shocked by her behavior, Charlie and the housekeeper agreed the new maid was mentally unstable. Charlie ordered the housekeeper to get rid of the crazy maid immediately. The housekeeper took Mia to her daughter's company. When Mary saw her mentally disabled mother, she looked disgusted. Even though Charlie had sent Mia away, he couldn't forget the flavor of her cooking. He hired several top chefs to recreate it, but none could. Finally, Charlie told the housekeeper to do whatever it took to bring Mia back. A mentally disabled mother came from the countryside to visit her daughter in the city. Her daughter, ashamed of her mother and seeing her as a burden, decided to put her in a psychiatric nursing home. When Mia saw the mentally disturbed patients nearby, she finally understood that her daughter wanted to leave her there. Though Mia was terrified inside, she didn't want to worry her daughter, so she forced herself to stay calm and told her daughter the place was fine. She said she knew her daughter was busy with work, so she should go ahead and leave. Mary told her mother there was no need to see her out. Her mother agreed but still stood there. Mary asked how she was feeling, and her mother pretended to be happy, saying it was a big house her daughter had found for her, much better than their place in the countryside. Mary said she had to go, and her mother smiled and said goodbye. What Mary didn't realize was that her mother only wanted to be with her. After her daughter left, Mia didn't know what to do. She curled up by the door. Then she realized she still had something in her pocket that she hadn't given to her daughter. She ran out and shouted her daughter's name with all her might. Mary pretended not to hear and walked faster. The staff held Mia back. Mary only stopped when she heard her mother's heartbreaking cries. She told the staff to open the door and asked her mother what she wanted. Mia pulled out some homemade candy from her pocket, the kind her daughter had loved as a child. Mary took it and told her mother to go back inside. Her mother finally found the courage to make one request. She only hoped her daughter would come visit whenever she had time. A few days passed and Mary didn't come. Mia stopped eating and drinking. The hospital called Mary in. As Mia lay unconscious, she kept repeating something her daughter had said 10 years ago. When the pear blossoms bloom, my daughter will come home. When Mia woke up and saw her daughter, she perked up right away. She pointed to a painting on the wall and said, the pear blossoms are blooming. My daughter really came back. Mary turned and saw that the wall behind her was covered in blooming pear blossoms her mother had painted. It reminded Mary of the day she left for the city. She had promised her mother she would return when the orchard pear trees were in bloom. A friend nearby remarked that Mary's talent for painting seemed to run in the family. It turned out that Mary, ashamed of her mentally disabled mother, had always told people Mia was her sister to protect her own image. Now, for the first time, Mary understood how much her mother missed her. She decided to take her mother home, but Mia refused. She chose to stay in the hospital. Mary could see the worry in her mother's eyes. Mary sent her friend away and asked her mother why. Mia feared her daughter's in-laws wouldn't like her, especially since no one knew they were mother and daughter. This time, Mary let go of her pride. She decided to accept her disabled mother. Mia was overjoyed. She packed her things right away and went home with her daughter. Seeing her mother so happy, Mary smiled too. But she didn't know that bringing her mother home would make her already broken life even more shattered. When a young girl came home from school, she found a new woman in the house, unaware that it was her mentally disabled grandmother. Daisy pulled out pepper spray, told the woman to put down the knife, and told her to stay back. Mia quickly put the knife down and explained that she was Daisy's aunt. Daisy had never heard her mother mention having a sister. What she didn't know was that her mother was ashamed of her own mother and had always called her sister instead. Seeing how adorable her granddaughter was, Mia couldn't help but want to hug Daisy. Daisy sprayed her right in the face. While Mia was blinded and coughing, Daisy ran to her room. She called her father and asked if her mother had a sister. Jack had no idea that Mia was his mother-in-law and also thought she was his wife's sister. He told his daughter that her mother did have an older sister, one with a mental disability. Now Daisy understood. Mia asked Daisy if there was any medicine that could stop her eyes from burning. Daisy wanted nothing to do with her mentally disabled aunt and didn't want to be around her. She called her father again and asked him to come home and stay with her. What she didn't know was that her father was out on a date with his mistress. He lied and said he wanted to come home too, but now that Mia was there, he could never come back. Daisy had no idea her parents were on the verge of divorce. She blamed everything on her mother. Daisy called her mother at work and asked why she had brought a mentally disabled woman into the house without her permission. She blamed her mother for keeping her father away and called her selfish. Mary realized her daughter had picked up this attitude from her cheating husband. Mary found Jack and showed him the ultrasound picture of his mistress's pregnancy. She threatened that if he kept driving a wedge between her and their daughter, she would make his mistress pay. She warned him to stick to their original agreement and play the role of a good father. In 3 months, once their daughter left for Stanford, she would file for divorce. Otherwise, she would sue for divorce and a court battle would take years. Until then, Jack's mistress's child might not even be able to register as a legitimate heir. Jack had no way out. Because she hated Mia, Daisy decided to run away from home. Mia overheard Daisy yelling at her mother on the phone and was furious. She asked how Daisy could treat her mother like that. Then Mia lectured Daisy about respecting her mother. Being scolded by her mentally disabled aunt felt like an insult to Daisy. Furious, she decided to kick Mia out of the house. A woman went to her sister-in-law's house to steal some clothes, completely unaware that her sister-in-law's mentally disabled mother was also there. While Anna was trying on Mary's clothes, Mia suddenly appeared and scared her. Anna thought Mia was the housekeeper, but Mia thought Anna was a thief. She pushed Anna onto the bed, got on top of her, and gave her a good beating, even headbutting her. Just as Mia was about to call the police, her niece walked out of the bedroom and called Anna aunt. Mia realized she had messed up, but Daisy was thrilled, thinking she'd finally found a reason to kick out her mentally disabled aunt. She immediately called her mother to say the aunt had caused trouble at home. What Daisy didn't know was that her aunt was actually her grandmother. Mary had always been ashamed of her mother's disability, so she passed her off as her sister. What Mary didn't realize was that this incident would tear her family apart. Anna complained to Mary about how vicious her mentally disabled sister was and demanded that Mary take responsibility for her injured nose. Even though Mary was annoyed that Anna was always stealing from her house, it was her mother's fault, so she promised to book an appointment with the best plastic surgeon and cover the cost. But Anna wasn't satisfied, she insisted on getting her lips done as well, plus all of Mary's designer bags and clothes. Mary reluctantly agreed, hoping to end the whole mess. Mary's mother-in-law, however, was not so easy to deal with. She came to the hospital and accused Mary of being a schemer, saying she'd been hiding the existence of her disabled sister for 10 years. She claimed Mary was worried she might pass on defective genes. The mother-in-law went even further, suggesting that if Mary really had such a sister, how could she have given birth to a genius like Daisy? She accused Mary of faking her pregnancy and getting Daisy from somewhere else in order to marry her successful son. She even demanded that Daisy and her son take a paternity test. Mary politely refused the unreasonable request, saying intelligence had nothing to do with genetics and that she didn't want to put her daughter through the test. Her mother-in-law accused her of being defiant and said she had no manners. No wonder her son wanted to divorce her. Mary could tolerate insults to herself, but not to her daughter. Mary said that if it weren't for her daughter, she would have divorced Jack long ago. In 3 months, once Daisy went abroad to study, Mary would divorce Jack and send her mother-in-law's precious son back home. Her mother-in-law was nearly speechless with rage. Just as Mary was about to leave, she ran into Jack, who had just arrived. Jack slapped Mary hard and demanded to know how she dared speak to his mother that way. He said that for 10 years he had hidden the truth about her disabled sister so the family wouldn't treat her like an outsider. Now she was threatening his mother with it. He called her shameless. Driven beyond her limit by her mother-in-law's insults and her husband's anger, Mary finally exploded. She slapped her husband back several times. Teenage girl, ashamed that her mother's sister was mentally disabled, kicked her out of the house late at night. When her mother confronted her, she showed no guilt, saying she didn't want to live with someone less intelligent than herself. What Daisy didn't know was that the aunt she had thrown out was actually her grandmother, her mother's biological mother. Mary had already had a huge fight with her in-laws for the sake of her daughter. Before she could even recover, she had to start searching for her missing mother. But no matter where she looked, she couldn't find her. Mary tried calling her mother's phone. Homeless and wandering the streets, Mia saw that her daughter was calling. She was both eager and helpless because Daisy had accused Mia of being the reason her parents' marriage was falling apart. When she answered, Mia told Mary that although she wanted to be with her, she didn't want to cause her any more trouble. Then she took out the battery to keep Mary from tracking her. Mary didn't know what to do. Just then, she ran into wealthy Charlie, who was also looking for Mia. He had tasted Mia's seaweed soup only once but couldn't forget it, so he wanted to hire her as his personal chef. When he learned that Mia was missing, Charlie was furious. Determined to get his soup, he ordered his male butler to help search. Then Charlie remembered a woman he had passed on the street. Her walk and silhouette were exactly like Mia's. A math genius, he calculated based on her height and stride how far she could have walked, factoring in how much time had passed, and took a taxi directly to where she should be. He found her. Charlie tried to bring Mia back, but she refused. When he tried to force her, Mia kicked him hard in the groin. Soon after, Mary and the butler arrived. The butler took Charlie to the hospital. The moment Mary saw her mother, she broke down. Within one day, she had been insulted by her mother-in-law, slapped by her husband, and misunderstood by her daughter. Now she still had to take care of her disabled mother. In the end, Mary brought her home. Daisy was furious that Mia had come back and demanded to know why. Mary told her daughter that everyone has struggles that others may not understand. Daisy realized that Mia was her mother's unspoken burden. She asked for a reason, but both Mary and Mia stayed silent. Seeing mother and daughter at odds because of her, Mia was consumed with guilt. She desperately wanted to be good to her daughter, but she always seemed to make Mary's life worse. A mother with a mental disability accidentally came across her daughter's divorce papers. Furious, she went straight to her son-in-law's house to confront him. Jack was terrified when he saw his angry mother-in-law. At that moment, he was at home hosting an engagement party with his mistress, Lisa. He immediately called his wife, Mary, and told her to come get her disabled mother immediately. He warned Mary that if she did anything like she did 10 years ago, he would not let it slide this time. Mary was already on her way. She asked her husband what her mother had done 10 years ago that scared him so much. Jack assumed Mary already knew, but her mother had never told her. So he explained. 10 years ago, when Jack tried to call off the wedding, Mary was already pregnant. For Mary's sake, her mother showed up at Jack's door with a kitchen knife, a rope, and poison. She told Jack to choose one. In the end, to ensure her daughter's happiness, she swallowed the poison right in front of him. Only by threatening her own life did she force Jack to go through with the marriage. Now, her mother had shown up again, furious. Jack warned Mary that if she didn't come get her mother immediately, he would send her to the police station. Panicked, Mary recalled her school years. Classmates mocked her for having a mentally disabled sister, and her mother would run to the school to stand up for her. But Mary wasn't touched. Instead, she felt humiliated. The other kids just made fun of her even more, saying Mary carried stupid genes. Even though she always called her mother her sister in public, she couldn't stand her mother's impulsive nature. Mary stepped on the gas and sped to her husband's house. When Mary finally arrived, she found her mother wasn't causing a scene. Instead, she was on her knees, begging Jack not to divorce Mary. It was Mary who had chosen to leave because of her husband's betrayal. Yet her mother was kneeling before Jack and his mistress. mistress. Humiliated, Mary asked her mother how much more miserable she wanted her life to be. Her mother tried to comfort her, but Mary pushed her away. Completely broken, Mary said bringing her mother home had been a mistake. On the way back, her mother kept apologizing for not being able to win Jack back. The more she apologized, the angrier Mary became. In a fit of rage, Mary pulled over and made her mother get out of the car. A mother collapsed on the street, heartbroken by her daughter's harsh words. As she watched her daughter walk away, she lost consciousness. Daisy had decided to cut ties with her mother after learning that she had once abandoned her grandmother. Just then, Daisy's friend arrived. Kevin picked up the unconscious Mary and called out to Daisy, telling her to call an ambulance. Daisy didn't want to get involved. Kevin tried to wake Mary, but nothing worked. Finally, Daisy hesitated and called her mother's former classmate, Dr. Arthur. Mary was rushed to the hospital, but she wasn't breathing. Arthur immediately began CPR, praying she would wake up. As he worked, his mind flooded with fond memories of her. Arthur had secretly loved Mary ever since their college days. He'd first fallen for her the moment they met, and soon they became close friends. When he finally gathered the courage to confess, he found out she already had a boyfriend. Arthur buried his feelings deep inside. Still, whenever Mary was struggling or heartbroken, he was always there for her. To this day, he had never married. Arthur fought to save her, but Mary's heart still wouldn't beat. He couldn't bear to watch the woman he loved die. A sincere tear fell from his eye onto Mary's cheek. Miraculously, her heart began to beat again. Arthur was relieved. Mary's cardiac arrest wasn't caused by her daughter's anger. Her primary doctor told Arthur that Mary would need a heart transplant to survive. Without a suitable donor, she had only 6 months to live. Arthur didn't know what to do. He was heartbroken that Mary was so sick and had no one by her side. So he called her husband, hoping to tell him about Mary's condition. But the man replied that they were already divorced and Mary had nothing to do with him anymore. Arthur was furious. If he had known Mary's life after marriage would be so miserable, he would never have stopped pursuing her. Daisy was too young, so Arthur didn't dare tell her the truth. He lied, saying her mother would wake up soon. Relieved that her mother was okay, Daisy went to her father and told him she was cutting ties with her mother and would live with him from now on. Jack was shocked. His good father act was just for show. His heart was now with his mistress and the son she was carrying for him. He didn't want to be burdened by this daughter, so he pretended to comfort her, saying he would never abandon her, but inside he was furious that Mary hadn't come to take the girl home. When Mary woke up, she didn't know how serious her illness was. She was still worried about her daughter. Arthur felt sorry for her, so he gently picked her up and placed her on the hospital bed, telling her to rest. Just then, Jack walked into the room. Seeing this, he sneered that Mary was scheming, already lining up her next man before the divorce was even final. He made it clear that he had only come to warn her to take their daughter away. He showed no concern at all for Mary's condition. A wealthy man unexpectedly fell in love with his new, mentally disabled housekeeper. Seeing her chatting happily with the male butler, Charlie grew jealous. When the butler was about to walk her home, Charlie quickly stopped him. He pointed out that he had paid for the car and for the gas. The butler didn't catch his meaning, thinking Charlie was just being cheap, and said he would take her home on foot instead. When the butler held the housekeeper by the arm, Charlie got even more jealous. He scolded the butler for doing personal favors on company time and ordered him back inside to clean. The housekeeper then decided to take the bus home, but Charlie stopped her again. Frustrated, she asked what he wanted. Without a word, Charlie took off his bathrobe. He had already changed into outdoor clothes. The butler and the housekeeper were stunned. He had been ready to drive her home all along. Charlie took a sports car and drove Mia home herself. Mia, who knew nothing about cars, complained that the car was too small and too slow. She said she would have been home by now if she'd taken the bus. Unbeknownst to her, the butler usually did the driving. Charlie had little driving experience and told her to stop talking so he could concentrate. He drove her around in circles, blaming the road signs for being too confusing. It was late at night when he finally dropped her off. Mia couldn't figure out how to open the car door, so she climbed out through the window. As soon as Mia got home, she caught her brother stealing. She scolded him for taking her daughter's things. Her brother told her that everyone now knew he was Mary's uncle. Only then did Mia realize that the secret that she was Mary's mother had been exposed. Though Mia was mentally disabled, she knew that her daughter had always called her sister out of shame. What she didn't know was that her granddaughter had decided to cut ties with Mary, and Mary was now lying in the hospital. To stop causing her daughter pain, Mia asked her brother to take her back to the countryside the next day. The next morning, her brother left a note and left. When Mia heard a knock at the door, she thought he had come back. Instead, it was the butler, there to take her to work at Charlie's house. But Mia had no heart for work. She told Charlie she wanted to quit, but Charlie, who had already fallen for her, couldn't bear to let her go. While he was trying to get her to stay, Mary's husband showed up with his mistress, Lisa, and her father to pay Charlie a visit. It turned out Lisa's father was Charlie's relative, and Charlie had never liked his social climbing ways. When Mary's husband greeted Charlie, Mia was so startled she spilled rice on the floor. She never imagined her daughter's husband would show up there. Jack also hadn't expected to find his mother-in-law at Charlie's house. A woman brought her married boyfriend to visit her wealthy relatives. Little did she know that her boyfriend's mother-in-law worked as a housemaid in that very relative's home. When Jack saw his mother-in-law, he was completely startled. Watching the maid stare so intently at Jack made Charlie, who secretly had feelings for her, intensely jealous. He thought to himself that Jack wasn't even as handsome as he was. How could he have captured the maid's heart? After a bit of inquiry, Charlie learned that Jack was Mia's son-in-law. Jack had abandoned his wife in order to marry into a wealthy family. Mia refused to cook for them. Seeing the woman he cared for so upset, Charlie couldn't contain his anger. He had never liked Lisa's family, who always tried so hard to ingratiate themselves with him. So he came up with a plan, one that would let him save face in front of his relatives while also getting back at them them for the woman he loved. Charlie handed Mia a bottle of laxatives and told her to add them to the food she was making. Mia, who was a bit simple-minded, didn't know what laxatives were. Charlie explained that laxatives were medicine that could clear up a heart clogged with pain in one go. Mia seemed to understand. Soon, Mia had prepared a whole table of delicious food. Charlie told them to dig in. Jack and Lisa seemed wary of Mia and hesitated to pick up their chopsticks. Lisa's father, however, saw the delicious food and began wolfing it down. He scolded his daughter, saying that since Charlie was treating them so well, they should eat just as heartily as he did. Lisa lied that they had already eaten a lot of snacks before coming, so they weren't very hungry. Seeing this, Charlie immediately brought out a bottle of laxatives and told them that taking these would make them ravenously hungry enough to swallow even the plate. Jack cautiously took one pill, but Charlie said that if they really wanted to show him respect, they should take at least 3, so Jack swallowed 3 more. Charlie then deliberately remarked that Lisa looked old and unattractive, so she should take at least 6. Annoyed, Lisa grabbed a handful and took them. Charlie glanced at Mia, and the two of them smiled with satisfaction. Jack wondered why Charlie wasn't eating anything. The butler immediately explained that Charlie had eaten breakfast late. Lisa then took out the pills Charlie had just given them and urged him to take some as well to boost his appetite. To avoid arousing suspicion, Charlie had no choice but to swallow the laxatives. As soon as the meal ended, Charlie was the first to feel the effects. He endured the discomfort just long enough to see his guests out, then immediately locked the door and, walking with his legs pressed together, rushed to the bathroom. Meanwhile, after just a few steps outside, the other 3 also began feeling unwell in their stomachs. Lisa's father could barely stand. Jack and Lisa wanted to go back into Charlie's house to use the bathroom, but Lisa's father pushed them aside. He begged Charlie to open the door, but the next second, he had an accident in his pants. Jack and Lisa were in agony as well. When the daughter learned that her mother had abandoned her intellectually disabled grandmother, she decided to cut ties with her mother. Daisy threatened her mother if she wanted her daughter back in her life, she would have to acknowledge that Mia, who was intellectually disabled, was her grandmother and call Mia mom. Only then would Daisy forgive her mother. Mary didn't know what to do. Mary had reunited with her intellectually disabled mother when she was 10 years old, but her mother refused to recognize her as a daughter. For that reason, Mary rejected her daughter's request. She admitted that having an intellectually disabled mother embarrassed her. She had always been mocked by classmates because of her mother. Her mother only made a mess of her life. Mary refused to acknowledge her mother's true identity and insisted they address each other as sisters instead. Daisy hadn't expected her mother to be like this. She said that if she herself had inherited her grandmother's disability, she was sure her mother would also find her a disgrace and abandon her. Daisy decided she would live with her father from then on, and then she left in anger. Mary had a sudden heart attack and couldn't move. Daisy had no idea that her mother would not live long without a heart transplant. Daisy went to find Mia, who worked as a maid in a wealthy family's home. When Daisy called her grandma, Mia didn't know what to do. She patted her head and pretended not to hear, saying that she was Mary's older sister and that Daisy should call her aunt. Daisy comforted her grandmother, telling her that this was the truth and that running away wouldn't solve anything. Seeing that Mia was so anxious she looked about to faint, Charlie quickly told the butler to take Mia away. Charlie was shocked and angry when he learned the situation. He blamed Daisy, since she knew Mia was her grandmother. Why would she treat her this way? Did she also look down on Mia for being disabled? Daisy said tearfully that she didn't look down on her grandmother, she felt sorry for her. She had come all this way because she missed her. It was her mother who had abandoned her grandmother, so Daisy wanted to apologize to her grandmother on her mother's behalf. After hearing Daisy's explanation, Charlie was deeply moved. Faced with Daisy's persistent questions, Mia finally told the truth. It was Mia who had refused to let Mary call her mother. Mia had abandoned her daughter in order to remarry, making Mary call her sister instead. Even later, when Mary learned the truth and wanted to reconcile, Mia refused. Mia had abandoned her daughter to live a better life. Daisy couldn't believe what Mia was saying. She insisted that it was her mother who didn't want to acknowledge Mia. Otherwise, since Mia had remarried anyway, why would her mother still refuse to recognize her? Daisy's words left Mia unable to answer. Watching Daisy walk away, Mia realized she had made a mistake. She had thought that calling each other sisters would let Mary live happily, but instead, because of her, Mary and Daisy were about to cut ties. Mia's good intentions had led to Mary being misunderstood by her daughter. After an intellectually disabled girl became pregnant and was abandoned, she feared her daughter would be mocked as a wild child. She decided to transfer her daughter's household registration to her mother's name, and from then on, she and her daughter would call each other sisters. She believed that by following her mother's advice, her daughter would have a better life. Little did she know that years later, this decision would cause her daughter tremendous pain. It wasn't until Mary was 10 years old that she learned the sister she had called that for her whole life was actually her biological mother. On the day of her mother's remarriage, Mary finally mustered the courage to ask about their true relationship. No matter how much Mary questioned her, Mia refused to admit she was her mother. Mia had followed her own mother's advice, believing that not acknowledging Mary as her daughter was the best thing for her. What she didn't realize was that Mary simply wanted a real mother. Mia's denial left Mary utterly disappointed, and she decided she would never acknowledge Mia as her mother either. Mary was scolded and beaten by her grandmother. Why had she come to ruin Mia's wedding? Mia's disregard turned Mary's heart toward resentment. Years later, when Mia learned that her granddaughter was about to cut ties with Mary, believing Mary had abandoned her, Mia finally realized she shouldn't have followed her mother's advice, which had caused this misunderstanding. So Mia had Charlie take her to the hospital to see the ailing Mary and try to reconcile. When Mary saw her, she told her to go back to the countryside. Mary blamed everything on Mia. It was Mia's fault that her own daughter was about to sever their relationship. Mary refused to forgive her mother and wanted her to disappear from her life. On the way home, overwhelmed with guilt, Mia told Charlie that because she was intellectually disabled and had insisted on giving birth to Mary, this was the result. It turned out that Mia had become pregnant after being assaulted assaulted. Her mother, out of love for her, had taken Mary away. No matter how much Mia pleaded, her mother refused to give Mary back. Her mother told Mia that Mary had been born without a father and would be mocked by the villagers as a wild child. Afraid her daughter would be laughed at and bullied just as she had been, Mia followed her mother's advice and treated Mary as a sister. She never imagined this would turn her daughter's life into such a mess. After hearing Mia's tragic story, Charlie and the butler both wept. The butler slammed on the brakes, pulled the car to the side of the road, and knelt before Mia, vowing that from then on he would protect her for the rest of his life. Charlie was furious, even a butler dared to compete with him for a woman. After a girl made the painful decision to cut ties with her mother and chose to live with her father, she had no idea that the female assistant by her father's side was actually her stepmother. Curious about a room that was always kept shut, Daisy went inside and found the room filled with baby toys and clothes. Only then did she realize that her father had a child with another woman. When the female assistant came home, Daisy confronted her with the ultrasound scan. From the expression on the assistant's face, Daisy understood everything. Lisa quickly called Jack, realizing that his image as a good father was about to crumble in his daughter's eyes. Jack felt both shame and anger. When he got home, he lashed out at Lisa, calling her an idiot. The truth was, Jack had no desire to raise Daisy. He was simply afraid that if his ex-wife found out, she would demand child support from him. As the two of them argued, Daisy ran away from home and called her father. Jack told her to come back immediately, saying he missed her very much. Daisy confronted her father. Was Lisa's pregnancy the reason he had divorced her mother? Jack pretended to comfort her, lying that Lisa's baby wasn't his, and asked Lisa to back him up. Little did Daisy know, the baby in Lisa's womb really wasn't Jack's. Lisa hesitated, only she knew who the father was. To find a new father for her unborn child, Lisa mustered her courage and told Daisy that the baby she was carrying was someone else's, not her father's. Daisy didn't believe her, because she had recognized her father's handwriting, his name and the date, on the ultrasound report. Daisy finally understood, she had been wrong about her mother. Her mother hadn't abandoned her father had betrayed the family. It turned out that Mary had a heart condition. If a suitable transplant donor wasn't found, she wouldn't live much longer. So she had arranged for her daughter to stay with her father temporarily, without telling Daisy the truth about her illness. She only said that once she got better, she would bring Daisy back home. At the time, Daisy hadn't understood her mother's meaning. She only felt that her mother had cruelly abandoned her. So she decided to cut ties with her mother and chose to live with her hypocritical father instead. Now that she knew the truth, Daisy was terrified that her mother truly was sick. The man had lost his fertility 4 years ago, yet his newlywed wife was pregnant. After coming home drunk, Jack demanded to know whose child Lisa was carrying. Now that her secret was exposed, Lisa didn't panic at all. Instead, she turned the question back on Jack. Just because the child wasn't his, did he expect her to have an abortion? Jack thought that was only right. Lisa mocked Jack for being infertile and unable to give her a child. Humiliated by Lisa's words, Jack regretted abandoning his ex-wife and daughter to marry Lisa, who had betrayed him. But he blamed his ex-wife Mary, accusing her of telling Lisa about his condition. Lisa also blamed Mary for telling Jack that she was carrying another man's child, and swore she would never let Mary off the hook. Seeing the lunch that her intellectually disabled mother had sent her, Mary recalled the silent, devoted love her mother had always given her. She decided to acknowledge her mother publicly at the single mother wedding dress event. Jack and Lisa, united by a common goal, reconciled once again and plotted to get revenge on Mary at the event by exposing in front of everyone that Mary had refused to acknowledge her intellectually disabled mother, making her appear guilty of abandoning her mother. Mary sent an invitation to her mother. When Mia received it, she was overjoyed, as happy as a child, because this was the first time her daughter had ever invited her to anything. Daisy helped her grandmother dress up, transforming Mia from a countrywoman into a beautiful lady. The wealthy Charlie was deeply moved by what he saw and decided he would marry Mia. Just as Mary was about to announce her intellectually disabled mother's presence at the event, Lisa quickly cut off Mary's microphone and played a recording instead. Mary felt a sharp pain in her chest upon hearing the voice. The announcement she had been about to make had been preemptively released by Lisa. Mary was devastated. Mia stood up angrily and explained that it was she herself who had refused to acknowledge Mary as her daughter. Also, Mary could live a good life. Only then did Mary realize that her mother had never abandoned her. She had kept her distance so Mary wouldn't be mocked for having an intellectually disabled mother. Seeing the woman he loved in such pain, Charlie suppressed his anger, walked over to her, and gave her a warm embrace. He decided he would protect her for the rest of his life. Having achieved her goal, Lisa signaled the staff to turn Mary's microphone back on. This time, Mary no longer felt ashamed of her intellectually disabled mother. Despite the intense pain in her heart, she told her mother's story to the audience. Mary admitted that yes, she had once been ashamed of having an intellectually disabled mother, but her mother, with the limited intelligence she had poured all her love into Mary. Mary pleaded with her mother not to let other people's opinions push her away, not to refuse to acknowledge her as a daughter. Mary's sincere words moved the entire audience to tears. Everyone stood up and applauded. Clearly, no one had fallen into Lisa's trap or misunderstood Mary. Not wanting her mother and daughter in the audience to see her suffering a heart attack, Mary dragged her exhausted body away. She went to a secluded spot and collapsed. Mary's condition was very serious this time. Unless a suitable heart donor was found, she wouldn't live much longer. The wealthy man decided to propose to the housekeeper he loved, but she suddenly collapsed to the ground. Charlie rushed over and picked up Mia. No matter how he called to her, Mia didn't respond. Desperate, Charlie asked passers-by for help, but no one was willing to step forward. They only gathered around to watch. Charlie suddenly remembered what the doctor had told him. If Mia lost consciousness again, she would need to start anti-cancer chemotherapy immediately. At the same time, he had to be prepared for the possibility that Mia might die at any moment. Holding Mia in his arms, heartbroken, Charlie poured out his true feelings. He begged Mia to wake up quickly, said he wanted to hold her hand and travel the world with her. He took out an expensive diamond ring and slipped it onto Mia's finger, telling her that now that that she was wearing his ring, she had to marry him. Charlie promised to protect her for the rest of his life and said that without his permission, Mia couldn't leave him. He kissed Mia's hand tenderly, hoping she would wake up soon. Just then, an ambulance came racing toward them. Perhaps because she had heard Charlie's heartfelt confession, Mia suddenly regained consciousness. When she saw the ring that had appeared on her finger, she looked at Charlie in confusion. Charlie suddenly became a little shy and lied, saying he had bought it from a street vendor. Mia, who was intellectually disabled, believed him and had no idea it was a real, expensive diamond ring. Mary also learned from her doctor that her mother was terminally ill. Furious, she confronted Charlie and blamed him for not telling her about her mother's condition. It turned out that Charlie was worried Mary, having just undergone heart surgery, might not be able to handle the news. Moreover, Mia needed a guardian for her anti-cancer treatment, and Mary needed a guardian as she searched for a suitable heart donor. Charlie already regarded both mother and daughter as the people he treasured most in life, so he chose to shoulder the burden himself and keep Mia's illness a secret. After hearing Charlie's words, Mary was in tears. In that moment, she felt that Charlie was like a wonderful father. She experienced paternal love for the first time. Mary went back to her room and wept as she looked at her sleeping mother. She felt deep regret for not having acknowledged her mother sooner, and even wondered if her refusal to accept her slow mother had caused her mother to fall ill. Mary was filled with remorse. There were so many things she hadn't yet done with her mother, so much time she hadn't had to care for her, and she had never even told her mother, "I love you." Now, the only thing Mary could do was to make the remaining time of her mother's life as happy as possible. The intellectually disabled mother begged the doctor to take out her heart, because her daughter would die soon without a heart transplant. The doctor immediately ran a compatibility test on Mia and found that all the blood vessels near her ventricles had died. She was essentially brain dead, fully qualified to donate her organs. The doctor marveled that Mia was still alive. It was a miracle. Heartbroken, Charlie instructed the doctor to proceed with the transplant according to Mia's wishes. The doctor handed Charlie a letter found in Mia's clothes. It was a message Mia had written to Charlie while watching over her daughter. She apologized for leaving like this, but said she wasn't sad because she wasn't truly dying. She would become part of her daughter's body. She asked Charlie to take care of Mary as she herself would have. Besides donating her heart to her daughter, she was willing to donate her other organs as well, since there were many other patients like her daughter waiting desperately for donations. She said that meeting Charlie had been happiness enough. After reading his wife's farewell letter, Charlie was utterly devastated. In a daze, the unconscious Mary saw her mother's soul saying goodbye to her. Then she woke up. Arthur did not tell Mary that Mia was brain dead. Instead, he lied that a suitable donor had been found. Mary looked forward to having the surgery and then, after her mother returned from overseas treatment for a brain tumor, moving back to the countryside to live together. Little did she know her mother would never return. As Mary was about to enter the operating room, she noticed a pattern on the donor's fingernail, the same pattern her daughter had painted on her mother's nails. Realizing the donor was her mother, Mary broke down. Mia had already been taken into surgery. Mary thought her mother's condition could still be treated and didn't want to accept her heart. Charlie had deceived Mary. Arthur told her the truth. Mary believed she had caused her mother's death and fainted from the shock. She was taken into the operating room anyway. Mary's transplant surgery was successful, but she wasn't happy. It wasn't until her daughter appeared that she decided she had to live on. 3 months later, Mary took her daughter to Charlie's house. She wanted to fulfill her mother's last wish. Even though she had lost her mother, she would still treat Charlie as her own father and live with him. The lonely Charlie was overjoyed. Then Mary took her daughter and Arthur to her mother's grave, speaking of how much she missed her. Though Mary had lost her mother, she had also found love and a father-like figure in Charlie. Perhaps Mary would come to understand life more deeply from now on.